coming up?
You can learn to operate a camera and you can learn how to format a website by reading a book or watching a video, but you need to actually practice that to get good. It is really about initiatives. If you put in the work and you make an effort to make a connection, you'll be
Hmm.
rewarded. If you go just for the sake of having a conversation or a LinkedIn connection and you don't follow up, you're not going to get anything out of it. So it definitely does rely on initiative. And so if you are still the sole sort of creator of these ideas, I think that does help generate authenticity.
Robyn Clark, welcome.
Hello, Kieran. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you on, and it's been a very long time to actually try and get you on there, Robyn. When I remember that I asked you this to come on in around March of this year, and we're now recording this in November. So a lot of things have happened from March all the way from November. Both 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 of us personally, and professionally and all that. There, we've just been busy and all that there. But it's finally good to finally sit down and have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I have been quite hard to track down, been very busy this year, but you know, I think being busy isn't always a bad thing, and it's great to finally sit down and chat about all that's happened throughout this year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way how I look at it as well. Like I had two eye surgeries, but from the last time that we spoke to now, and it's like, a lot of busy stuff. I've got a couple more projects now happening in 2026. So yeah, and it's just really good to sort of sit down with you and just have a nice conversation with you. It's just a nice chat, and you and me, we every time when we have a meeting, every time when we catch up and whatnot, we seem to sort of talk for a while. So it's just a normal conversation for us. But you're also someone there who I've met at Open Coffee again, another person there who I've put on the Open Coffee list and all that there. And yeah, I'm starting to rack up some numbers there from the Open Coffee crew and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the networking is working, I guess. There you go.
Exactly. I remember the first guest that I had on was Raghav, and so it was I did that with Raghav, filmed it with like Raghav last year, but then I aired it this year, and when I did the change, so yeah, it's one of those things there where you just sort of go, oh yeah, I'll go to one networking event, but then it just sort of the people there that you meet, you don't expect to meet these types of people, or you don't expect to sort of see these types of people, or have different types of enthralling conversations with them.
Yeah, that's very true. On the note of Open Coffee Sydney, I feel like the people I've met there, I've actually sustained my connections with. Whereas other networking events I feel like I go to, it's like, oh, hello, let's connect on LinkedIn, and I never speak to them again. But I feel like everyone from Open Coffee Sydney I've connected with somehow down the
Mm.
line, which is just a testament to, yeah, how good the format works and how great the people are that go.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is the people. I think because, Peter and I, we've just like, even though we don't talk as much, but we just send each other text messages and all that sort of stuff there, and I think that you are right there in the fact that the people there who I sort of connect with a lot as well, I meet mostly through Open Coffee. I think I think it is a testament for the people. I think it's also a testament for again the format, but also the people there that attend these types of events. That it's more of a genuine connection. That they're because I was always taught build the relationship first and the business will come later. That's the way I was always taught, and I just sort of think that that's part of the reason why I was drawn to Open Coffee was because the people there, it's like, okay, yes, it is about business, it is about the startup world, it is about all that, but you can also have friends. You can also make friends along the way with it as well. So that's the way how I sort of viewed it and all that.
Yeah, very true. It's definitely that the friends you make along the way and the connections that you might think, hey, that's actually really useful down, in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Now, for those of you that don't know who Robyn is, Robyn, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that I will say this now, you are at the moment, the youngest person to have on that for me to have on, and you're also still a university student as well. But uh, still a brilliant mind, brilliant talent, and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I am a third year university student studying at the University of Sydney. I do media and communications, and my second major is in innovation and entrepreneurship, hence my interest in the startup world and entrepreneurialism. I'm currently working in a bit of social media marketing and do a bit of side work here and there, working at the uni as well, doing things with the university run club. I would say my interests are sort of sprawled all over the place when it comes to work and my passions and everything. I do have a few lives, as my friends say, and I'm doing different things all the time, but I enjoy being busy and I enjoy the challenge of taking a lot of things on. And I think I've learned so much in the process.
And for those that are also who have been tuning in also there to the podcast as well, Robyn is also the person who, in the last episode, I did actually mention that gave me some running advice. She was also the person that gave me some running advice, and we've got a little bit of a running gag going on, me and her, where I nicknamed her, where I give her a nickname, and all that there. So if I do refer to her as troublemaker and all that there throughout this conversation, that's just the way as to how me and Robyn are and all that sort of stuff there. But I'll try not to there, Robyn. I'll try not to embarrass you too much there.
All right.
So, why media communications and why entrepreneurship or innovations and entrepreneurship? Why that degree? Why that? What made you choose it?
Honestly, going into university, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to study really. I first chose international relations as my main focus. And I was really interested in politics and public policy. And then I started learning about it. And I did one semester and I was like, this is actually not what I want to do. I think the idea of, oh, international relations, you might get to travel as part of it. That is what excited me. But I very quickly realized I didn't like any of the theory. And so, yeah, pivoted into more of the marketing, business, media, communication side. And I ended up loving that. Um, Uni's a little bit dry in terms of the theory that you learn. It's not exactly the same as actually going out and practicing communications in an organization, but through work experience in the marketing field, doing a bit of social media for some people, working on websites, etc. I've really enjoyed that, and yeah, I've sort of just found my passion there. Although with that said, I think my passions and interests change so often, and I might be in a completely different place in 5 years. But
Mm.
I'm honestly very happy with that prospect. I think, your career isn't meant to be linear and you learn so many things in so many different fields. So, yeah, I'm just excited to see where I'll go. Obviously, I'm still very early on in my uni career in my third year, and then there are so many, different avenues I could go down and so many opportunities. So, I'm just keen to see where this will take me essentially.
Yeah, well, I'll put it like this here, Robyn. I started my degree of Bachelor of Sports Business, and I was 18 and I did it, and I've now um, slowly coming back into sport, but I've now been, working in the startup world. I went from uni into the startup world, and now, in the future, potentially going back into the sports world, and I've met some connections there as well in the sports entrepreneurship area there myself. But yeah, I mean, everything you just sort of said there, I was just sort of just shaking my head, yes, because it's definitely sort of true there, especially from my time there, especially from my time at uni, was the theory can be very bland, but it's more about the field, on the boots on the ground, learning what you can learn, the experience you can gain is a lot more better, I feel. And I think I don't want to sound like this here, but I think for certain degrees, I think I've said this here so many times, there are certain degrees, and I want to know your thoughts on it now. Some certain degrees, I believe, are like you need the academic stuff. So like your medicine, like your law, you need that academic stuff. But then some other degrees is more practical based. And I think marketing, I think business, that's definitely one of them because whilst it says they're all in a textbook, well, it tells you, you know, how to market or the four P's of marketing and whatnot, but you've still got to do it. You've still got to try and true. You've got to test things out. You've got to look at the way how things are. You got to look, does your audience react to this? Does your viewership react to this? Is it increasing your sales? Is it not? What are you doing right? What are you doing wrong? And that's just something there to which what I found. And I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. I do think media and marketing are very much things that you have to go out and do rather than study. You can learn to operate a camera and you can learn how to format a website by reading a book or watching a video, but you need to actually practice that to get good. And it's a very competitive industry nowadays as well, especially with media and the whole gig economy. And, so many people are studying marketing at this uni at least. So to get ahead, you really do have to get that practical experience and work experience, working within a company and meet people and network rather than just get the highest grade in the class. I
Mm.
do think, as you mentioned, there is so much merit in those subjects like law and medicine where you have to sit down and study. And obviously, I would hope that a doctor has, studied everything they need to do so they're able to, you know, do the work they need to do. But yeah, for my field at least, I do think that I've gained most of my experience through work and I haven't really learned all that much at uni. Not to say that there isn't merit in university. I love uni for the opportunities it's given me, the networking opportunities, the ability to make friends and to really discover who I am and join clubs and societies and um, yeah, like refine my leadership skills. So I think I found a lot of value through university in my own way, not necessarily academically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do enjoy learning and I do love that satisfying feeling of understanding a new concept. But I do think that with certain subjects, the way that they're taught, it's very outdated and quite irrelevant.
Mm. Well, I'll say this. I'll ask this question because I want to know your answer. Because a previous guest who I had on he was the third episode of my podcast, Dr. Alex Roper. I've known Alex for God nearly 10 years, and Alex and I've said this convers I've said this a little bit to him, a bit before and whatnot. But I want to know your thoughts. Is uni worth it? In some degrees. Is it worth it, or do you think it's better to just sort of say, okay, rather just go and get the experience? In some degrees, I know we were talking about law, medicine. Go, you got to be more qualified. You got to go and get your degrees to go and do that. But for a degree like business or for media management or for marketing or um, I I think finance potentially no, because you need to learn, you need to understand tax law and all that sort of stuff there and accounting. But for the more practical sort of units or the practical side of business, would you say uni's worth it, or would you say no, not really, don't, not to worry?
I think this is a really hard one. There is the perspective that uni is irrelevant and you can just go out and get all the skills in the workforce and just get the experience immediately without having to, do all this irrelevant theory and waste a whole bunch of money. And to some extent, I do agree with that. And there are definitely people who go out and do that and are really successful. And that
Mm-hmm.
is a really amazing thing. Although I do think uni is valuable and I think I wouldn't change anything. If I could get the same experience and not go to uni, I'll still come to uni, um, because I think there's so much value in coming to a space where everyone's learning different things and you're learning so much about how to work with people. And as
Yep.
much as I dislike group assignments, I think it's made me realize how I work with people and the way I like to communicate with others and the types of people I like to work with. And as much as, yeah, it can be so frustrating working with a group of people and you might not necessarily care about the assignment, it's so good to just figure out who you are within that space.
Mm.
So I do think there is value in university, especially coming out of high school. Coming to university can be a great place for you to just figure out what you want to do as well. You can try new things, and because you're in a learning environment, you can make mistakes and fail, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Whereas, going straight into the workforce, let's say you're working on a project and you mess it up, the stakes
Hmm.
might be a bit higher. Sure, it
Yeah.
might be fine, but yeah, in a university setting, you're able to make a pitch and it might be really crap and it doesn't matter. So I think
Mm.
there is merit in university. I do think that it's not suited for some people, and some people are very much, entrepreneurial minded. And if they know what they want to do and they have certainty in their ideas and they're certain of the person they are, I think it's a great way to just go out and start working immediately. But I do think that, for those people who are unsure, it can be a good place to just sit and, figure it out. You've got
Mm.
those few years to just be, and you don't have as many responsibilities in terms of the work you're doing, right?
Yep.
Like it, like the quality of the work you produce. It's not like your terrible essay is going to affect the outcome of any client or anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
That's fair.
depends who you are, but personally, I think it's a great fun place, and I've definitely developed my sense of self here. And yeah, the connections I've made, I know that I'll take on in my life. So I think it's very valuable.
Yeah, that's fair. I actually kind of agree with that to an extent because, some of the friends who I've also made at university, one of them, he works at a professional sports club, and me and him, even though we don't catch up with each other every now and then, I always still send him the odd text message, and just to check in on him and just to see how he's going and all that sort of stuff there, and I think the friends that you do make and the colleagues that you do make along the way, and I think the the connections, I think depending on what sort of degree that you're doing, I think that can definitely help because you're all learning because you're all learning at the same time and all that. I think those people there do become pretty good connections for you to actually reach out to, even just to bounce ideas off as well. So I think whilst whilst the theory side might not be as good or as good as practical in certain areas, but I definitely do think that the social or the connections side of it, because I've always sort of said this here, I think I said this here in my episode with Alex, it's not what you know, it's who you know, for those. So people can rage at me all they want, it's but but it's not what you know to begin with. It's who because you always need people there to give you the opportunities. So yeah, that's just yeah, like that's the way how I sort of view it.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think, it's not what you know, it's who you know rings so true to me personally, because half of the jobs I've ever gotten have been through connections. I haven't applied for them online. In fact, they weren't available online. It was through speaking to people, it was through putting my name out there. And yeah, I think it's just so valuable to have these connections. You don't know, you might meet people now, and 10 years down the line, they might say, hey, I need something, and you might be able to help them. And that might lead to, you know, a business opportunity or just being able to help someone out, or, you might rely on them for something else. So I think it's so useful.
Yeah, exactly. And you just don't know what it might come up to. I mean, you might introduce someone to you might introduce one person who you know to another person. And like that's like honestly, that's how me and Chris were because Chris was my lecturer and in my second year of uni and he's become arguably in my adult life, he's become arguably one of the most important people of my adult life. He gave me an opportunity out of university and I'm helping him with his charity, and even just now, he's him and I we other than the charity work, we still talk on a daily to weekly basis and all that sort of stuff. There, just outside of that. So I think the connections that you make, it really does um, it really does become very important, and it really does become very special with some of those. But you said there high school and the difference between, and you said there look, first out of high school and whatnot. Tell us uni life because I remember my uni life very as like you can wake up at whatever time you want to get depending on the time that your class was. So my first class was at 8 in the morning, so I'd have to wake up at 6, catch the train to get ready to go there, have a lecture, then have a tute, then you can go. What has uni life still the same, or has it changed since the past 10 years since I went there?
I guess that's essentially still the crux of uni. You just go to your lecturer and then you go to your tute for each of your subjects. For me personally, it looks a bit different because I just fill my days with so many different activities, but essentially the uni curriculum is all the same. And that's what most of my friends do. They just come into their classes and go
Hmm.
home. But I am the type of person that always needs to be busy. I love filling up my schedule. I love pushing myself and seeing how much I can do in a day, which
Hmm.
isn't always a good thing, which I can get to later. But yeah,
Yes.
I do think uni is good fun because I can come in and do so much, and I might only have one class for the day, but in the evening I might have a networking event, and in the morning I might, have run club, or I might
Yep.
have another society event, and I might come in to study or just to use the facilities on campus. I do think it's just such a great place to get things done, and my
Hmm.
brain associates the uni library with productivity. And so I almost struggle to do work at home because I'm so used to sitting, at a new desk every day. Um, yeah. So that's uni life for me. It's very busy but very fun. In terms of uni coursework itself, I feel like I'm not doing as much of that as I should.
Hmm.
I more so do a lot of the co-curricular stuff and side projects here and there.
Transitional phases. Like, how did you how did you handle the transition from high school, going from 8:30 to 3 in the afternoon to then just going in whatever time that you want? Because for some people there, that like structure, it can be very difficult. But then for people there, it can be very, I won't say liberating, or actually, I will say liberating. That's probably a lot more of a better term. But what is the transition like, especially like with the workload, with schedules, with everything on top of it? Because at times it can be daunting at times.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that strives off of structure. I personally loved the go to school every day, set amount of hours because I had to wake up at the same time every day. It was so easy. Whereas at uni, when you're not strung by those deadlines, it is a bit harder. For instance, sometimes I'm late for my 10 a.m. class because I've woken up at the wrong time. So adjusting to that schedule is hard. And I think that's why I keep myself busy so I am able to create my own schedule for myself. And that isn't all that consistent. I would like it to be more consistent. But yeah, building a schedule for myself has helped me kind of navigate through that transition period where I've gone from doing things every day to only a few classes a week. And so by filling my week, it makes me feel, more productive, but also helps me kind of fill that empty space. So I've got a bit more of a sense of purpose. Uh, yeah, in terms of the workload, I feel like it was a bit of a change in terms of the assignments we were doing. And I do think that being around really intelligent people in your classes, it can feel like, oh, you know, haven't really done too well in
Mm,
this essay. But I think I've realized that I don't think university is really about, getting that,
yep,
99 mark. In school, we're so hung up on this final mark so we can get into university. But
yep.
in university, all you need to do is just pass and get that piece of paper and you're off to work. And like everyone gets that same piece of paper, whether
Just got to play the game.
get a higher mark or a lower mark. So I think after realizing that, I think I've prioritized that work experience and, you know, I'll obviously graduate and get my little piece of paper, but alongside that, I'd hope to have, a breadth of experience. And
Yep.
that's what I'll sort of bring to the table. Yeah.
The way how you said it there is something that is basically play the game. That's the way as to how that is exactly what Alex Roper said to me last year in university is play the game. That's and what you sort of said there, get your pass mark, get your piece of paper, and then that's it. But one thing to what I want to ask you is, do you think also with the transitioning as well is the fact that because university is for all ages, over 18, of course, that when you go when you go to school, so like say if you're in year 12, you're hanging around 17 or 18 year olds. Whereas if you're in university, you could even be in the same unit or in the same subject as some people that are 22, 23, 24. Hell, sometimes people in their 30s. Gives you do you think it gives you that life experience to talk with people far more mature than you or far more older than you and basically how to handle that as well?
Yeah, 100%. I do remember being in high school and it was always so strange to befriend someone in years below. You're always like, nah, like we are the year 12s, we're going to assert dominance and we're just going to hang out with ourselves. And so coming to uni, we had all sorts of people. Some people who had done gap years, some people who had transitioned from another course over. So I was, starting my course as an 18-year-old, but I would have, friends who were anywhere from 20 to 25, especially in things like the run club as well, which I'm part of, where you have post-grad students attending. We've really got such a range of ages, and I think that's a really good thing. It has taught me to, yeah, definitely work with a whole range of people, and it's definitely made me a lot more mature.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I don't view them any different, really. You don't really realize it that first semester when you're there. You're like, oh, like everyone's kind of older than me. And then now I don't even know the age of so many people who I work with and who I study with. But,
Mm.
that's not really a conversation that even comes up. And I think that's a good thing. It's definitely taught me that at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. And I think experience and wisdom matters so much more than how many years you've been at uni. I know people in their first year who are so mature and so intelligent, and I know
Yep.
that they're going to go out there and work and do such a great job. And on the flip side, I know people have graduated who are very immature, and I'm sure they're still going to go on to do great things. But yeah, I guess it's interesting to see that juxtaposition between people.
I'll give you an example for that there. When we met last year, the way as to how you sort of held yourself, I actually thought you were at least 25. I thought you were actually closer to my age and whatnot, because I was 27 last year. I actually thought that you were 25, the way as to how you sort of held yourself at the networking event and the way as to how you went on when we first met. And then when I found out that you were actually 20, I was just like, oh, what the hell? Like she's that bloody mature. So it's like bloody hell. Like so I'll sort of say as a tone as an impediment to that you know you can't really sort of judge people buy that sort of way of sort of going. But I think it also does help, especially if we were to just sort of look at it just from a startup world perspective, is the fact that you're going to have entrepreneurs at ages 20, at ages 30, and you're also going to have people there who are in different industries, like say if you want to start as a tech developer, some software engineers are going to be in there potentially some of them going to be in their early 20s, some of them going to be in their early 30s or beyond. And I think going to uni and potentially just hanging or just talking to people that are much more older or being around like with the mature people, being around with mature people, it sort of sets you up for real world experience for that. So for when you do, if you want to work with a business partner, there's, if someone's really, really old and you're really, really young, sure, there might be a bit of an age gap difference, but it might, depending on how big the age gap is, it can bridge it a little bit because you've had that experience of working or had that experience of handling or not, not handling, but working with more mature people.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not only working with people of different ages because of their age, but also learning how to communicate with different audiences,
Yep.
and how to, get your message across to people who are younger than you and might have, such different experience to you. And it's also, equally just as important to be able to sit opposite someone and also accept their differences and, accept that you might disagree on so many things because you might value
Yep.
different things or you might have a different outlook in life and realize that that's okay. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that uni has also taught me. Like I've disagreed with so many people that I've worked with, but I am now able to, sit there and like, that's okay. And you don't have to agree with everyone. I think I used to be a very agreeable person. I still am to some extent, but I've definitely learned to be more assertive with my ideas and to be confident in my own reasoning and my own thoughts, as a
Mm-hmm.
result of working with people who I have sort of been very different to.
So we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but with networking, what have you learned from it? And yeah, what are some things that you've learned from, and what are some things that you could potentially say to someone that is iffy about wanting to go to a networking event because they're not sure what they'll learn or the people that they'll meet? What is it that you've learned or something there that you can give to someone about going to networking events?
Well, what I've learned about networking is it is really about initiative. If you put in the work and you make an effort to make a connection, you'll be
Mm-hmm.
rewarded. If you go just for the sake of having a conversation or a LinkedIn connection and you don't follow up, you're not going to get anything out of it. So it definitely does rely on initiative. I would
Yep.
say to someone who isn't really sure about it or is a bit iffy, it's also really something that you just have to practice to get good at. No
Mm-hmm.
one walks into a room and is automatically good at speaking to people.
Yep.
So going to more networking events, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, that's the way you're going to get better at talking to people. Even
Mm-hmm.
when I first stepped into Open Coffee Sydney, I feel like I was quite shy and reserved in terms of, expressing myself. And I was holding things back a bit. And I was so careful with the things I said. But, you know, the more you go, the more you pitch yourself to people, which is essentially what networking is. You pitch how you can help people, what you do. And yeah, the more you do that, the better you get. And the more confident you get, the easier it gets. And hopefully you just get to a point where it just becomes second nature to meet someone and, instantly kind of form that connection with them. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to gel with everyone, but it's
Yep.
about making someone realize the value that you can provide. And I think that
Mm.
is a skill, and you need to be specific with that. And you also need to be not only um, not only confident, but also, friendly and inviting. You do want to, yeah, present yourself in a way where people are going to want to talk to you not only in a business setting, but you know, you just want to have a good time with people as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I sort of said this earlier in our conversation, but I was always because I was nervous going to my first open coffee, just like what you said there. But it's something that what Chris said to me: focus on the relationship first, and the business will come later. And that was even to this day, I still do that because I know that one conversation with someone isn't going to form a multi-million dollar business, or it's not going to form a major deal. It's going to be okay, okay, first impression's everything, but even if I screw it up, have the conversations with people, form that relationship, so then at least that way, if something does arise from it, you've got that relationship and you just build from it. And the business stuff can basically happen later, you know? I mean, just use us for example. I think I connected with you on what last year would have been around mid last year. And then then when I went for a business idea, I messaged you around March. It was about a couple of weeks before before my first eye surgery. That was like nearly 6, 8 months. So I think I think that when you form the relationship first, I think the business side of it can come later. And that's just sort of my thing there. But I think that you are you are basically pitching yourself, as you said there. You are selling yourself. So I think that if you just keep attending these events and you keep attending them, it makes it a lot more easier, and also makes them a lot more fun and also enjoyable, because the more that you go, the more that you actually sort of look and you sort of realize, hang on, these people are very similar to me. We're in the same, like we're sort of almost in the same area. We're in the same this, in the same that. So it also makes them a bit fun the more that you sort of go to. Well, at least that's what I believe.
Yeah, 100%. It is so much more fun when you're able to connect over something you're both interested about and talk about your hobbies and things outside of business. And much as startups can be fun and interesting, they can get a bit dry sometimes when you're talking about it all day.
Mm,
So, yeah,
definitely, definitely, definitely. But if you could give someone who, as as I sort of said earlier, if you could give someone just one piece of advice, that going to a networking event and saying, Robyn, I don't know what to focus on. What should I focus on? Or what do I need to do at my first networking event? What's, what are you telling them?
my one thing would be to be your authentic self
Mm-hmm.
as much as you can go and hype yourself up. If
Mm-hmm.
you're acting like someone else and you aren't being your true self and you're just, talking about what you do, but not really connecting with that, I think it's very easy for people to realize that. It's so
Okay.
easy to spot when someone's just saying something for the sake of it, and you can tell, hey, there's not a genuine connection here. I don't really know what this person's all about. I do
Mm-hmm.
think that if you are your authentic self, even if you're a bit more shy or reserved, or you mess up your pitch, or you aren't able to communicate all that well initially, it is so important because in this day and age, I think people are so connected to faces and stories. And if
Mm.
you've got, let's say, a business idea, people not only care about the business, but they want to hear the story behind it. They want to
Yeah.
know about who's created it, what their story is, and their why. And so I think leading with that and leading with your authentic self and your own story
Mm-hmm.
is so important.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think what you sort of said there with the story and with the face of a startup, I completely agree. I mean, like we hear all the time with all these startups there that are like feel good stories all the time there in the startup world and whatnot. But you've been going to Open Coffee, and you've also gone to a couple of other networking events. What's your thoughts on the community? Like, even just in the entrepreneurial or even just the social media or like just with the networking events that you've gone to, the community around it there, what's your thoughts? Because I always sort of because people always sort of say to me when I said to them I was going into the startup world, oh, everyone's going to be, not, they're all going to be very secretive. They're not going to be telling you the ideas. They're going to be all cutthroat and don't tell people the ideas because they might steal them and all that sort of stuff there. But when I've gone to the networking events, nothing of that. So I think, so my question to you is, in the networking events that you've gone to, the communities around that, thoughts on them?
The community is very curious, which is something that I love. It's constantly about, meeting people, finding something out about someone else's business,
Hmm.
realizing how someone else might be able to help you. And I
Yep.
think that curiosity is what defines the startup world for me. It's not about these cutthroat businesses who are competing against each other, but it's
Hmm.
rather about, okay, how can we come together as a team and help each other? And I think there's that sense of connectedness and collaboration. Even from talking to a few people at Open Coffee Sydney, I've had meetings afterwards where we just have a chat over a coffee and speak about how we can help each other, whether it's me providing my insight as a young person who's, working in social media or, me asking someone for career advice. And I think that's really great. There's this connection that's formed, but also that sharing of knowledge, which I
Hmm.
think is so prominent at networking events within the startup world. It's all about that connectedness and supporting each other. And you see that where people are sharing other people's, you know, business ideas, or you see that when someone says, hey, I know someone else who has a similar idea, maybe you should check them out. And there isn't, that hostility that comes with these sort of big established corporations where there's constantly competition, and it's how do we, you know, outsmart this business and how do we do better? But it's rather, because you're a startup, you're kind of all in the same playing field, which is such
Yeah,
a great thing.
exactly, 100%. I mean, it's more along the lines of saying here, it's like, okay, even though that we're competitors, there's probably going to be another guy or another business that's probably doing the same thing, but have probably got a lot more money. So why don't we just put our two heads together and two heads are better than one? That's the way as the old saying goes.
Yeah, that's right.
So internships, you've done a few of them. I should know because we every time we try and have a meeting, you always have to sort of reschedule some of our meetings and all that there from because of internships and all that sort of stuff there. But but thoughts on them so far? What have you learnt? And obviously, an internship is good for you to gain experience, but now I got to choose my words carefully. Are they worth it for compared to sort of working outside of outside of uni? I mean, is it better to sort of while you're at uni to be working, or better to be not working and potentially just doing the internships, if that makes sense?
Yeah, look, I think it depends on the person and the type of job they're going for. So if you're in a position where you can't do an unpaid internship,
Yep.
obviously I'd recommend you find a paid internship or just work experience, because, essentially an internship is the same thing as just going out there and working. If you get a casual job, it's probably similar stuff if you're going into the same field. I
Hmm.
do think there is merit in an internship if you're trying to build your skills, or for someone like me, I'm trying to build my portfolio. And so even though it's unpaid and I'm doing work for someone, I can later use that and say, hey, like, here are these marketing assets, here's this website I've done, and yeah, use that and show my future employers. And I do think that there is value in that. I do also think it is the way that you frame the opportunity as well. So I am doing an internship outside of uni as well. And through that, I haven't gotten anything that would be valuable for my portfolio. I haven't created any assets or posted anything online, but
Mm-hmm.
I have realized how the whole internal marketing structure works. And
Okay.
I've been able to meet people in different departments across the job. And I've had conversations in terms of how they got to the roles they're in and where they're thinking from in the future. And I've sat in board meetings and realized how things run and, like, I guess the scale of these massive campaigns. And so, although I haven't received anything physically from this internship, I do think that there is so much value in just, yeah, learning and sitting there. And I feel like I'm a fly on the wall in most of these things. Like,
Mm.
you know, one day at my internship, I was told to just sort of fold papers and sit there, and I didn't really do anything. And obviously, that wasn't intellectually rewarding. But I think as a whole, if you frame it as a learning opportunity, there is so much you can take from it. So it is really about perspective. I do have friends who have done internships who are like, oh, I wasn't doing anything. I don't think it's valuable. I am very much the type of person who goes into things craving that value. And I do
Yep.
try and kind of, yeah, scrape around until I find something that I can use to
Mm-hmm.
help me in the future. So I find that, yeah, my internships were valuable. Will I
Yep.
do more in the future? Maybe, maybe not. I think, you know, paid work is also good. I think it can be quite strenuous. And I've done two this year. And I think that's probably all I'll need to do. I think I've exhausted myself of unpaid work. So I am excited at the prospect of actually being, financially rewarded for what I do. But with that said, hopefully, if I'm looking for a job opportunity next year, that might be a bit better at a higher level because of those skills I've gained. So
Mm.
yeah, I do think there is merit. Again, depends how you frame it. If you're just going to go and not take anything from it, then it's probably better you just go start work and get a job straight away.
So what's one of the things there that you've learnt from, like, just even just from with the marketing, the social media? If you had to just sort of say something there that you've learned, what is it?
A lot of things that I've learned in general, I think, as broad skills like organization, communication, and time management. That's a very big one. In terms of those smaller specific skills, obviously with social media, you have like the practical side of like filming, editing, copywriting, distributing content across platforms. That also comes down to like, you know, management of the content on platforms too, looking at analytics, data,
Yep.
distribution of emails, coming up with ideas, content plans, creating content calendars, but also just, yeah, being someone who's there to provide insight and ideas. So a lot of the time when I work, I'll sit down with the owners of a company and we'll say, okay, like how can we improve our marketing efforts? And a lot of it isn't sit down work. It's a lot of the time a conversation. You know, it can be building sort of community relations as well, reaching out to people on social media, looking for their stories. So a broad range of skills I've learned, which would take me into so many different avenues. Like in the future, if I were to graduate, I could go into PR, I could go into corporate comms, I could go into
Mm-hmm.
content marketing, social media marketing, more of like digital marketing and analytics. Is, yeah, it's very broad, but I think that's also very exciting. And I hope in the next year or so while I'm still at uni to continue learning all those skills so that
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it just expands sort of that area of opportunity for me because, again, not exactly sure what I want to do, but I see that as a bit of a blessing so that I do have room to explore
Mm-hmm.
and to sort of tread my foot in the water a little bit.
So you said there about social media. Now, I want to know your thoughts on the social media because we're heading down a path where I think we're already there, where social media is sort of now everything, and all the content that we're now starting to see now is social media, and also with the introduction of AI. What with some of the stuff that you've learnt already, just with social media, that you could just sort of give that people can just sort of if they're wanting to for example grow a business, grow a podcast, for example, or it just I don't know, even just grow anything with social media. What's something there what you've learnt um, from that there as we are more and more into that social media world?
I think two things. One, on the note of AI, if you use AI in a smart way, it can be
Mm-hmm.
so useful in terms of social media marketing. For instance, creating a content calendar, generating
Okay.
ideas. If are bulk creating a bunch of captions, you could write a caption, put it into AI, and get it to spit out a few similar captions which you could repurpose for other posts. I think it's so useful when it comes to things like that, editing, even sort of digital assets that you can use AI to create now, especially in the startup world. It can really streamline the process, and you can hire one less person if you do learn how to use it. I think there's no way of resisting AI. It's really just about using it in a smart way where you're not obviously plagiarizing or distributing all this false information because you haven't fact checked anything. But if you know how to spot errors in AI and also how to prompt AI, it can be very useful within
Mm-hmm.
social media marketing. The second thing is, because there is so much AI that is out there now, and people see AI images and they immediately know that's AI. I don't trust what that's saying. I think there is this need to generate trust through authenticity. So on
Okay.
one hand, you've got all this AI stuff going on, and yes, I think businesses should use that. But at the same time, we're kind of living in this economy where people are looking for alternative spaces that aren't online. And you see that in things like the rise of run clubs or like coffee clubs or like these daytime raves where people are just looking for a space to connect in
Mm.
person, or connect with brands who speak to authenticity. That you can tell when businesses are just overly using AI. It's the same generic story. And you look at all these businesses, they're all the exact same. I think being different and unique and personal is such a powerful thing to use. And this links back to what I was speaking about before in terms of authenticity. When you pitch yourself, what's your story? Because essentially that is what's going to become more important, especially in this world of automation. People are going to rely on authenticity and authentic stories. And let's say I were to hire someone to do a task for me and I wanted someone to like write a story for me, right? And I didn't want that to be using AI. I would go out and seek out someone's story who's really captivating. I'd look for an author who's like really connected to what I want to produce. So yeah, on one hand, I guess AI, use it in a smart way, and two, within that, find ways to generate authenticity, even if that's through speaking to your audience personally, going out and meeting people. Maybe that can be through like a in-person campaign or a activation in person, or is it like making the effort to organize coffee meetups like in person rather than online?
Yep.
Small things like that, I think. Yeah, that in general, that's where sort of the marketing trends are heading towards at the moment.
Okay. So is there a way that you can sort of integrate both, as you sort of said there, with the likes of AI, with marketing, calendars, and all that there. But what are some? But is there a good way to sort of integrate both? Because I know that there are things like Canva that you can use AI for, but people do also want that authenticity. Is there a way to sort of use AI but without using too much of it, and also still to create authenticity? And if so, how can someone do that based on your experience, of
I,
course?
I do think so. I think there's definitely a way to use AI where you're still being authentic. I think
Mm-hmm.
firstly that relies on you still generating ideas yourself, not just saying, hey, generate this idea for me, but rather going to AI and saying, hey, this is my idea. How can I improve upon it? And so if you are still the sole sort of creator of these ideas, I think that does help generate authenticity, putting that power in your hands to steer the creative direction of a project really does help. I do also think that in terms of creating more agency for yourself, I think you need to learn to be critical of AI. If it produces a poster for you or if it's written some copy for you, change
Hmm.
that, edit that. People want to hear your voice within that. And I think realizing the power of it, it might not be perfect, but people nowadays are looking for imperfect stories. They
Yep.
don't want a picture that has been generated using AI. They want
Mm.
a scribbled drawing that you've done because they can tell it's made by a human, it's
Yep.
humanized. And there's something so personal and so moving about something that is created by humans. I think that links to this whole concept of like art and psychology and like, yeah, it could be a whole separate conversation. But I do think just being intentional at like making sure you are inserting yourself within all these narratives that are created within this digital world.
Okay. Okay. That's very, like, to be honest, that's very interesting. You actually sort of actually got me really drawn in there, because I do think authenticity is something
Sorry,
there
one
which,
moment. I've just
no worries, because I think authenticity is definitely something that is, and Robin's back. Nah, but I think authenticity is something there that's very important. I think because with brands, and especially with businesses, because we all want a feel good story. That's what we all want, and we don't want uh the generic sort of same old sort of thing there. But we all sort of want a feel good story. Now, before we sort of get towards the back end, there's something there which has just sort of popped up into my head. There's a couple more things, but there's just something there that's popped up into my head. LinkedIn. Your thoughts, should every person that goes to university, when they get in there for their professional career, should they just automatically start their LinkedIn account? And what is something there what you've learned about, or better yet, what are some things there that you've learned from using LinkedIn that you could give someone to improve on, to give them a head start?
I do think this one's hard because, at least in the university context, there is such a stigma
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to LinkedIn, and people call everyone LinkedIn warriors, and it's like, oh, everyone's just trying to be a bit of a pick me on LinkedIn. You're just posting something that doesn't really all have all that much value. It's like, oh, I went to this day or that today, and I think sure, these are great stories worth telling. And whenever I see a friend on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, yes, I'll like that. I'll go support that. But I do understand this whole sort of movement against LinkedIn. Like, I have so many friends who refuse to go on the platform because there are just so many people who just flood it with, oh, like, I'm happy to announce this, I'm happy to announce this. And I think it becomes almost a bit of a whole status thing and a bit of an
Yeah.
ego thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely see that through some profiles when people make their whole personality about, I'm just going to try and get 500 connections for the sake of it. Or I'm going to, post about all these things. And you might meet these people in real life and they don't have much to talk about. They're pretty boring people. They don't seem to really convey, what they say to be valuable in their post. And I think that again comes back to authenticity when it is all about purely getting likes,
Mm-hmm.
comments, and shares. That's when I think it becomes problematic and that defeats the whole sort of purpose of the app. And I think a lot of apps are, you know, kind of dangerous in this way because LinkedIn has become this sort of social platform similar to TikTok or Instagram, where it is all about likes and shares. And that
Mm-hmm.
is quite a worrying trend. So I would say to people who are using LinkedIn, I don't think that should be your priority. It shouldn't be, let me just add all these people so I can get all these connections, but rather intentionally using it
Mm-hmm.
to your benefit or to the benefit of others. For instance, if you're sharing a project and you think that other people might find the information on there valuable, or you're looking for, a um, partner to help you, I think that's a great tool. It can be such a great way to, you know, meet people, to extend the connection you've already made. And it can also be a great way of, checking in, saying hello. You might not have someone's phone number, and it is the norm to just say, hey, like, what's your LinkedIn? And it can be a great way to just look through someone's profile and, say, oh, yeah, I remember that this is the person that, started this business and they do this. So there definitely is a lot of merit in it. Would I recommend all university students get it? No. I
Mm-hmm.
think that you can go out there, meet people, go to networking events, grab people's phone numbers, grab people's emails, and achieve, you know, similar success rates. Again, if you're intentional, I think it all comes back to intentionality, which I've spoken a little bit about today. But
Yep.
if you are just on LinkedIn for likes, shares, comments, that's all you're going to get. You're not
Yep.
going to get authentic conversations. You're not going to have people reaching out, um, wanting to form that proper connection with
Mm.
you. It's all just for show. And so if you're going to use it intentionally, sure, get it. But I definitely don't think it's a must. I do think in this whole, business world and in the whole working world, it's like, oh, like you need LinkedIn if you're, going to share an announcement, or if you want a job, or if you want people to notice you. But that's definitely not the case. There are definitely so many acclaimed people
Mm.
who aren't even on the platform. So yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting take there because I mean, but what you did say there, I can definitely agree with in regards to if you don't have them, if you don't have their phone number, you don't have like any of their other socials or their email, for example, then LinkedIn is probably potentially the best way to sort of do it. I mean, that's where I sort of reached out to you to begin with in March, honestly, for a business conversation and all like that. I've reached out to you through LinkedIn, and that was the only way as to how I could sort of communicate with certain people. And I think that it's a good way to sort of reach out to certain. It's a good way, but I think that you are right. I think with the authenticity, I think it's something there to which you know if if we can be more authentic, then I think the likes and the shares, the comments, that'll all you know sort itself out and doesn't really matter, to be honest, as long as you are being your authentic self. That's and all that there. But one last thing before I move on to the final part. You're a runner. You do a bit of running and all that there. So you have sort of, and you have given me some running tips and all that sort of stuff there. So got to ask, running, what what got you into running, and also with the run club and all that sort of stuff there. Like, and secondly to that, what is something there that running has given you or taught you that you can sort of almost to your profession, take into your professional career or take professionally?
So I started running 4, 5 years ago now.
Oh
And
wow.
I did that out of, it was COVID lockdowns and there was nothing else to do. And I was like, well, I have to use this as an excuse to get out of the house. So I started running, and that was small distances to begin with, 1, 2 kilometers. But as I progressed, I sort of started running longer distances, got involved in cross country in high school. And then when I came to uni, it sort of just made sense to join a running club because I wanted to find a community, um, that I could be part of. And running was
Mm-hmm.
something that I did at the time. So I just joined the club, and from there started running a lot more. I think that was my peak of running around 2 years ago. I was, yeah, running almost every day. I signed up for a variety of races throughout the year. And then, yeah, from there on, I discovered my love for a leadership position within the run club as well. And I've been the president of the run club. This is my second year um, in that role again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been great fun to not only run, but to build the community and do things behind the scenes. For instance, organize partnerships with cafes, with sports brands, to collaborate with the run club, to organize camps, to organize running events. And so
Mm,
I've loved that sort of event management side where I'm able to express my passion for the sport, not only through doing the sport, because I do think that you run too much, you'll get burnt out. And
yep.
it also isn't too good on the body if you're not getting proper sleep and you're busy, etc. And so a way that I've still been able to express my love for running is through contributing to the club, which I think is such a great thing. I don't run nearly as much as I used to, probably only once a week now, because I've been so busy and I've got priorities in other places. But it's been so great to still actively be part of that community, even if I'm not running. I get to go out for dinner with my run mates and still feel a part of that.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's helped me a lot in terms of like mental health, just being able to get out there and not think about anything that running for an hour like every day. It really does help to clear your mind, and it is such a great form of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's also taught me to, I guess, realize that I can push myself beyond the limits that I set myself. So I think it's like such a good thing to be able to, yeah, go out there, push yourself, challenge yourself, do things that you don't think you can do. Like I've definitely challenged myself so much in running, and if you asked me a few years ago, I would have said, that's crazy. Like I can't run these distances. But to be able to do that, I think that definitely does translate into my professional life, because I am able to look at a challenge and be like, okay, this seems, awfully difficult, but just as, running a marathon would be, I know that it's going to suck and I'm going to hate it at the time, but I am able to achieve that. So for anyone looking to, yeah, get into running, I'll definitely recommend it. It's great for mental health, physical health. And even if it does, feel really hard at the beginning, that's like the point of it. Like, no one runs because it feels easy all the time. The point is to, do a hard thing. Let's say you do a run in the morning when you wake up, you've done one hard thing for the day, and then you can go about the rest of your day. And even if you may face challenges and obstacles, everything else feels that little bit easier because you've already done that hard thing.
Yep.
So that's what I have to say about running. Yeah, very fond
And
to
also,
me, but yeah.
yeah, and also if you are going to be running in winter, wear warm clothing and actually stretch. And also, if you actually get advice from someone, actually listen to them and whatnot. Uh,
That
that
is
would,
good running advice. Yes, do remember to do
yes, I think
stretches before running and to warm your legs up before you start.
yes, I think the person she actually gave me the advice, and I just actually didn't take it. And for those that are actually wondering, Robin was the person that actually gave me the advice, and I actually just didn't take it. So sorry about that. But yeah, but that there just sort of, but yeah, it's very interesting because it also just sort of shows that outside what you like how you can learn different things just from the likes of running. How you can learn things from the likes of running. How you can take that into a professional sense, or how you can take things from say from sport, because people sort of say that you can almost that oh you have to be in a professional environment, or you have to have taken things from a professional environment, but that's not really the case in some instances. You can take different sort of skills from basically your entire life. That's the way as to how I sort of also look at it.
Yeah, 100%. All these things are interconnected, and that's the reason why I do so much and I try and dabble in all these different areas, whether it's
Hmm.
sport, music, uni, other recreational activities, because I think it all contributes to, the person you are and the person you're becoming, and being able to balance all these skills and to tap into these different areas of your brain. I think it's a really powerful skill.
That's exactly true. Now we're heading now to the end section of the podcast. So, um, Robin, my this is where I sort of get the question from what my previous guest will ask. my current guest, which is you. So my previous guest was May Koo, and May asked, what is the one thing you love the most about yourself, followed by what are the downsides of that?
The one thing I love most about myself is the fact that I will say yes to anything.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, doing my running things, doing uni, getting involved in a project. I think the downside of that is burnout, committing
Mm-hmm.
to too much. I think there definitely is a fine line between saying yes and getting involved and seeking opportunity, which is something that I really try and do. Every time there's any opportunity in front of me, I'm like, I have to,
Yep.
grasp that, or otherwise it will go away. And I think it's a good thing to take with you, and it forces you to try new things and to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But with that said, you say yes to too many things, you get burnt out, and you also bring yourself unnecessary stress.
Mm-hmm.
And it is important sometimes when things don't align with your schedule, or even if your project doesn't feel right for you, like to say no and to be
Yep.
certain in your decision. And that's something I used to struggle with quite a bit. I have always sort of been very much a people pleaser. I don't want to say no to people, and I don't want to
Mm.
upset people. But I have realized the power of saying no, being assertive, because it means, maybe you'll have more time to work on a project, and you might receive better outcomes because of that extra time. Even
Of
if you,
course.
you say no to doing something for a day, that might be that break in the week you need to then
Mm.
take on the next week with a bit more energy. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the one thing that I do like myself, but also the downfall of that.
Well, that there almost concludes the podcast episode where but now it's now at the stage there where I'll hand it over to you for you to ask my next guest my question. So what is the question that you're going to be asking my next guest?
So, my question, granted that your guest is over the age of 20 years old, is what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Okay. Okay. Oh boy, I can definitely give myself. Yep. Okay. I'm definitely not going to answer that one there. Now I can definitely, I know what, I'm definitely not going to answer that there now. And all that there. But yeah, that's actually a very insightful question. I actually genuinely think that there's going to be a good one. I can actually think of I can actually think of an answer I would give, but I'm not going to. That's one of the things there what I don't like to do. Yeah, but so thank you for that there, Robin. Pleasure to have you on. It
All
was a
good.
great
It was a pleasure
conversation.
speaking to you.
It was a great conversation. And Robin, I'm gonna have you back on sometime in 2026, hopefully. Yeah, but that there concludes this episode of the podcast, and I'll see everyone in the next one.